Welcome back to the painting channel, everybody, and today I'm going to be doing an oil painting for you. Now it's really cold outside and I'm sitting on the heater almost, and I've got a real nice hot mug of coffee to be going on with. So what it's going to be today is I wanted to really sort of follow on from the warm and cool theories that I did a couple of weeks ago. And this time it's going to be a winter scene, probably because it is so wet and damp and cold outside, I don't know. But it put me in that frame of mind, and I wanted to do a little snow scene on my native Romney Marshes, which involves a lot of warm and cool colour. So with that in mind, I'm going to start getting straight into this and see where we go from there. So what I'm starting with is a gessoed panel on MDF or masonite, if that's what you would use, and it's got two layers and randomly painted on so that I don't get a conformed texture. I'm using a very weak solution of burnt umber with a lot of medium to cover that white up, to get rid of that. And what I'm going to be doing is then using a cloth to get rid of and take it back to a mere tone. It's representative of when I talked about midtones on my last video. I'm now just checking the horizon line, making one or two adjustments and rechecking. Actually, I realized that it really wasn't that far out, so I was quite happy with the way it went. So now I'm going to be drawing in a fairly sort of dryish medium in burnt umber, keeping the same color, and I'm drawing the North Downs in the background. You'll see a picture come up very soon to show you the reference that I'm working from. And I've got a nice tree, which is a dominant tree in that background, but it sets it up as a focal point. You saw me just change the height of the hill in the background there. I felt that it was a little high and it needed to disappear a lot sooner than I'd first given it sort of the ability to do. In the middle ground, there's a contour line running through of a field edge, and there's a large bushy tree right just off center there, and I put that in, and I'm putting a few of the trees in the distance. Now these are big trees, they're large trees, they're all sorts of trees and bushes, mainly hawthorns and blackthorns and that sort of thing that grow along the marsh roads. Here I'm putting in another contour. This is a nice diagonal lead-in line, so you've got the clumps of heavy reedy grass in a damp field that grow up over many years, and they're big heavy tussocks of grass. And I'm re-establishing some of the field by putting the fence in and giving you some form of reference. Now I'm mixing up. This violet is just to show you how mixing the blue and the magenta gives a real funny, or not funny, but a real true violet, and that's too much for what I want. So I went back in with some ultramarine and cobalt, but also some red, just to take it off of that purity. And that's what I put into the sky. And the sky, I'm just sort of getting it done, getting it covered, paying heed to where I'm at. But I've also picked up, I quite like some of that violet that I left on the palette, and I've put some of that into the sky, and I continue to do that, especially down near the horizon line, just adding that pinkish. It's trying to portray that the sky is full of snow and it's moving away, and the light on the snow is from behind me or to one side of me. It doesn't really matter where, as long as that sky is really dark and dominant, and it therefore will throw up the light in the snow later on. Now I'm just putting the same color mixes as the sky, but I added some more umbers to that mix, so that dirtied the mix, and it gave me the color that I needed to suggest all the wooded areas on top of the hills, the trees that create the lines coming down the hills, or different field contours and edges. Then I put in some white and some cobalt blue. That gave me the effect really of having a shadowy snow in the fields on the sides of those hills. I'm letting a little bit of violet come into it as well, but essentially it is just the cobalt blue and white that's making the difference. But it does tell you that it's snow, but it also says that the whole of that part of the hill is still shaded by the clouds above. I've changed my brush to a very nice dagger brush from Rosemary and Company. Really beautiful brush, and it is so many actions. I keep saying this, but you can do so much with a lovely dagger style brush. So now I've just carrying on filling in all these contours of fields. I'm not putting that much detail in. I don't need to. Hopefully, if the values that I put in are correct, then your brain will see what it sees and join the dots and make all the ideas and connections that I need you to tell you that it's actually snow on those hills and they're in shade in the fields because there's still a big cloud over the top. I'm just putting in a little bit more ultramarine now with that umber, just to darken one or two and change some of the edges that show them to be wooded areas on top there. I actually changed the shape of the hill as well. You saw me wipe a little piece out and then go back in and replace that with other colour so that I had that nice break in the hill just off centre. So from that point on, I'm just adding one or two field details to suggest to you that there's more going on. There's distant trees at the bottom of the hills, and they are very much in the same tone or values of colour that I was using on top. There's not a great deal of difference in terms of aerial perspective from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill, so you can get away quite nicely with a very, very similar or the same tone. Now what I'm doing is I'm mixing the whole of this up now, and I'm just adding in a lovely bluish effect, which I'm going to start thinking about putting into the middle ground field. And it's a base color. It's not going to stay that color. It's just to give me some idea. In fact, I'm already graying it out by putting in some cadmium red light. Now that cadmium red light's got yellow in it, so I've got blue, I've got red, and I've got yellow, which starts to grey and mess up the mixture. It's nothing wrong with that, it's just taking it off the purity. And I put very much the same colour in the field beyond that middle field, so there are now two fields containing pretty much the same colour. This is a lot of cobalt blue and white, and that's going to go into the foreground field, and it's a shadow. There's something large, and honestly I can't remember what it was, but there was something casting a very big wide shadow right across the front of me when I was there. And all those little strokes are divots. They are areas of thickened grass. They could be made from tussets or where ants have colonized and created these larger mounds, but the snow lays over them in lovely soft undulations, so they attract shadows and they attract the light, and that's what I wanted to put in. And don't forget, as they go away from me, they got a little bit smaller towards those darkened bases, which will be the grasses. So now I'm sort of adding in some darks, and I'm getting a bit of blue in there, a bit of ultramarine, bit of umber to put the darkened areas of these trees and the bases of bushes that are in the distance, and well, actually all the way through, because there's a lot of dark shadows, but the further away they are, they're a little bluer, they're a little cooler. And I've put some right in the foreground here, a little bit more browns going in, a little bit more umber, but they are deep dark bases to those big grass tuffets. I don't know what the grasses are called actually, but whatever they are, it's not a problem. They're very hard to break, and they will cut your fingers you tried pulling on them. So yeah, they're quite a coarse grass. I've made a slightly warmer colour, this time with my reds and yellows into some of the brown, and I've given it that extra warmth. It gives another or additional sort of value of that warmth going through the background initially, and also will be in all the major areas where it's quite dark, where there are trees and where there are those grassy areas. But I've reinforced some of the areas with the blue too, because I lost a little bit to the left hand side. So now I'm putting in some slightly warmer values, some this tree in the middle here, it's got to have a nice light side. And I'm not quite sure why it's that shape, but it's sort of just, I think it's probably 2 or 3 bushes that have come together, grown together, and formed this large mass in the center. But it was great because it was an accent to the big tree in the far distance. Now I've added a little bit more warmth to these grassy layers in the foreground. There's not going to be too much detail to those, just a little bit. What I realized is my tree needed a few sky holes, so I mixed up color that was almost the same as the sky as quickly, as fast as I could. I didn't preserve that color, so I couldn't go straight back into it. And I popped some in to create sky holes. Now I've mixed a much more brilliant yellow and orange together to give me a much more fiery look to that tree, because they were, all of the trees there, they were all catching the evening sun, and that's what made this scene so beautiful, because you had that heavy cloud, you had the sun on the snow, and you also had the warmth of the wintry grasses and beds and reeds and all those things that you're looking at as I develop this picture. And it's a lot of fun because it's sort of quite randomly loose, and I'm just tapping here, tapping there, and you join the dots. As I keep saying, your brain tells you that if I've got those values right, the size right, the marks are about correct, then your brain will tell you that there are trees and bushes in the distance, there's a bigger tree in the center there, and these will be grass tuffets in the foreground. Now I'm putting on a really fiery orange to that tree. It's high, it's catching that sun most of all, and it's just beautiful. And I'm using some of those colors into areas of the dark, so they will stand off, they will stand up and be seen. And where those oranges touch the blues, wow, that is complementary paintings at its best. That's where, you know, these oranges and blues, they just work beautifully together. Mix them together, they kill each other off, of course they do. But complementary side by side, they are a really exciting, punchy prospect. So now I'm adding some of that same color value into the grassy tuffets in the foreground here. And you know, there are many of them. They're all different sizes, different heights. Now I'm mixing up my snow color. Now I wanted it really warm, and I tested it first, but I needed it a lot warmer than I've got. I had too much yellow into that, so I started putting a little bit of cadmium red as well as the cadmium yellow deep into the mix. And I started putting what I call it like a peachy mix. And I just like that because that is a very, very warm snow. And we all know snow's white. We all know it's very, very cold. But there's nothing better that when you're painting a picture of snow, if you can paint that snow warm and inviting, it sits better with the audience. People like to see a nice warm snow picture. Now, I know that's a contradiction, but it's really quite true. If you paint snow that is cold and menacing, it's not as appealing as having something that's got this lovely sun on it. It's throwing up these beautiful colors against the blues of the shade. So yeah, I'll do that all day long because I love it. Now I've used a rigger and I'm putting in some of that really bright snowy color right the way through that back edge there. It's suggesting another field. It's suggesting somewhere out there that's just getting a bit more light, a bit more sun on it, and it is a really great divisive way to add aerial perspective. A well-known English painter, born in 1910, sadly died in 74, Edward Seago, he made that almost his trademark, to put these beautiful touches of distance into fields and give this beautiful expressive highlight which just changed the whole scene. Yeah, I'm a big admirer, I've got to say, but that's for another video and that's another day. In the meantime, I'm adding some lighter blues, some lighter cobalts, where even in the shadow there's a little bit of light reaching some of those tuffets, so they're reflecting, albeit in shade, a little lighter area of the shade, and I will go back in the other way in a minute and I will add some darker blues in there just to suggest the flip side of those divots, and I'm reinforcing some of those shades into the snow right in the foreground. So you've got lovely blues against these lovely peach colors, and again, it's just complementary. It just works so well. And always bear it in mind, now around the edges of the grass just need a little bit of a tidy up, few blues, few lighter blues going in, just to suggest that again there are some shades, but that's also getting some sunlight, so they're not going to be as deep and as dark as areas through this immediate foreground. So now I'm going to start mixing up the darker ones, these a little bit more blue going in, less white, and against the mid-tone blue through the middle they will show up as little darker areas, as you can see now, and that's suggesting more shadow areas within the main shadow part of this picture. It's a lot of fun because, you know, you're not actually painting detail, you're just painting color marks, little suggestive taps of color here and there. What I'm doing now is mixing up a really strong orange, and that is going to put some of the weedy grasses that are way too long to be covered by the snow, but they are pushing through the snow and glistening in that sunshine. So they're really strong oranges, but where those oranges punch through the blues, again, that complementary system is happening, and it just makes the whole painting electric at that point. And it's not this, you're not going to do it over all of it, because if you do, it's too much same-o, and you don't really want that. You need to vary it. You're not painting wallpaper, you're painting a variation. There's nothing repetitive really in nature, so you try and make things as random as you possibly can, albeit they're all over the foreground. There's loads of them. Now I'm adding some of the darker areas, some of the dark damp roots that have either suffered in the dampness and gone black, or they're just in shadow, or deeper areas of grasses, but they are carrying a distinctive dark value. And I'm mixing it up. I'm putting a little bit of the mid-tone reds in, and taps of areas within that middle ground. So yeah, I'm really sort of coming to the end of this now. So with that in mind, I hope you've enjoyed this painting. The full version is on my Patreon page. If you want to have a look at that, the details for my Patreon are in the details below. Check it out. You'll be most welcome. It only costs you between $5 and $10 a month to become a patron and enjoy narrated full videos, full paintings, and having so much more on offer to you. But if not, that's fine, not a problem. I hope you subscribe to this channel. If you enjoy the content, you enjoy what I'm doing, please subscribe to it. Please like this video and please share it with your friends. It costs you nothing to do that. It really does help me. And in the meantime, and until next week or next Friday, happy painting. Have a go at this one and see what you think, and let me know and show me the results. I'll be interested to see, and I'll answer all your comments and suggestions in that comment section below. So until then, happy painting, guys. Bye bye for now.